Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a fascinating look at the absolute engine of human behavior. We often think of motivation as this magical, elusive spark, right? Like it's just something that strikes us out of nowhere. But it turns out, it's actually a deeply measurable biological and psychological drive. It's something we can systematically understand, engineer, and literally build from the ground up. So today, we are going to explore the architecture of our ambition, drawing on some of the absolute most foundational theories of human psychology.
Because really, it all boils down to one fundamental mystery. Why do we actually do what we do? Think about it. Whether it's pushing through some brutal late-night project, finally starting that new fitness routine, or stepping up to lead a massive team, there is a hidden framework guiding every single one of those choices. By looking closely at established theories of motivation, this explainer is going to completely decode that framework for us so you can understand the exact mechanics of human drive.
Here is our blueprint for today. First, we'll look at the anatomy of motivation. Second, needs, those core desires. Third, processes, which is the mental math our brains do behind the scenes. And finally, architecting your ambition.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. Anatomy of motivation, the blueprint.
If we look at the core definition, it's actually wonderfully elegant in its simplicity. Motivation is what drives behavior through two totally distinct pillars, needs and processes. Now, think of needs as the raw fuel for your engine. They're the deep, foundational cravings and deficits we're desperately trying to satisfy. Processes, on the other hand, well, that's the mental math. They are the cognitive calculations our brains run constantly to figure out exactly how to acquire that fuel. And the kicker is, you absolutely need both to take any meaningful action in the real world.
That brings us to Section 2. Needs, the core desires. Let's look at those fundamental cravings.
We kind of have to start with the baseline we've all seen 100 times, right? Maslow's hierarchy. It starts at the absolute bottom with physiological needs, just the bare basics like food, water, and shelter. Once those are locked down, we naturally seek safety. Then we move right up to social belonging, followed by esteem and recognition from our peers, and finally, at the very peak, we reach for self-actualization, which is that intense desire to fulfill our highest possible potential. Just think of this as the universal structural foundation of what every human being fundamentally wants.
Now, leader theorists actually streamline that foundation. Clayton Alderfer took Maslow's 5 distinct tiers and condensed them into his ERG theory. And this brilliantly illustrates things using just 3 highly efficient categories: existence, relatedness, and growth. Essentially, we need to exist and survive, we need to relate to each other, and we need to grow and improve. It takes all the complexity of the human condition and turns it into a very clean, understandable, and highly practical model.
Interestingly enough, Herzberg's two-factor theory splits our needs right down the middle, especially when we talk about being at work. He separates things into hygiene factors and motivators. Just think about literally every workplace complaint you've ever heard. A broken coffee machine, terrible air conditioning, totally mediocre pay. Those are hygiene factors. Fixing them merely prevents dissatisfaction. It just stops you from being completely miserable. But let's be real, a working coffee machine doesn't automatically make you passionate about your job. To drive actual, lasting satisfaction, you need motivators. We're talking things like deep recognition, true responsibility, and genuinely challenging work.
Rounding out our look at needs, we have McClelland's achievement theory. I like to think of our drive as a giant psychological pie made up of 3 distinct slices: power, affiliation, and achievement. McClelland argues that our primal driving forces are divided into these specific slices. Some of us desperately want to influence and lead others. That's the drive for power. Some simply want to belong and connect. That's affiliation. And some just want to conquer the mountain and solve the puzzle. That's achievement. Every single one of us has a slightly different mix of these slices in our personal architecture, and that exact mix dictates what truly gets us out of bed in the morning.
Let's move to our next core concept and see how this builds. Section 3. Processes, the mental math. This is all about calculating the effort.
Which brings us straight to Vroom's expectancy theory. This gives us a literal mathematical equation for human drive. It states that motivation equals expectancy times instrumentality times valence. So let's just walk through this mental math together. Expectancy is basically your brain asking, if I try hard, can I actually do this? Instrumentality asks, okay, if I do this, will I actually get a reward? And valence is the ultimate reality check. Do I actually care about that reward? It's fascinating because it's pure multiplication. If any one of these 3 factors is 0, the whole equation equals 0, and your motivation completely collapses. No way around it. We are running this calculation in fractions of a second before committing to literally any effort.
But that mental math isn't done in a vacuum. It heavily involves Adam's equity theory.
which highlights fairness in exchange relationships. Imagine your motivation totally tanking when a remarkably lazy coworker gets the exact same bonus or the exact same praise as you. Infuriating, right? Well, that is Adam's theory in action. We are constantly, obsessively calculating the fairness of our effort relative to the people around us. If the exchange doesn't feel equitable, our drive doesn't just lower, it entirely evaporates.
So, with all these complex calculations happening constantly, how do we actually focus our energy? That is exactly where goal-setting theory comes in. Setting a concrete target organizes everything instantly. 1. It directs your effort straight at the target, completely eliminating distractions. 2. It drives persistence, forcing you to keep pushing when the math gets tough. And 3. It shapes strategies, forcing your brain to figure out exactly how to succeed. Setting a goal gives your motivation immediate, rapid forward momentum. Bringing it all together now. Section 4. Architecting your ambition. Let's synthesize this motivation.
So, the crucial point is this. True motivation requires both the foundation of our needs and the blueprint of our processes. Understanding your deep desires, whether it's Maslow's need for self-actualization or McClelland's drive for achievement, is simply not enough on its own. You also have to calculate the fairness, set the right goals, and ensure the expectations actually align, just as Vroom and Adams demonstrated. To build lasting ambition, you have to pair the raw materials of your desires with the cognitive engineering of your actions.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely vital question to ask ourselves. Are your goals built on the right foundation? Are you working tirelessly for rewards you actually value, or are you just trying to fix hygiene factors while completely ignoring your deeper psychological needs? I highly encourage you to take a hard look at your own architecture of ambition today. Apply this mental math and just see what you can truly build. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.